What if I told you 12 of your favorite grocery items could vanish completely before March 2025? That's right. Shelves are already going empty and it's only going to get worse. According to recent data, nearly half of major grocery chains are struggling with critical shortages right now. And you're feeling it too. Prices are through the roof, availability is shrinking, and by next year some staples might not come back at all. Here's the deal. Extreme weather, global trade issues, and skyrocketing production costs are hammering farmers and suppliers. Crops are being wiped out, shipping delays are piling up, and grocery stores are left scrambling. But there's a lot more to this story, and the media won't tell you the half of it. Stay with me because I'm about to reveal the 12 items disappearing fast, especially number 9, which is probably in your kitchen right now. Don't wait until it's too late. Let's get into it. Number 1, olive oil. Here's the hard truth about olive oil. It's about to turn into a luxury item you can't afford. The olive oil crisis of 2025 isn't just a minor inconvenience or a slight price hike. It's a complete disaster for your pantry that's going to redefine how we cook. Think I'm exaggerating? Buckle up, because the facts don't lie. Spain, the world's largest olive oil producer, is facing one of its worst droughts in recorded history. Those picturesque olive groves you see in travel magazines? Many of them are over a century old, and right now they're literally dying of thirst. Satellite images show once green fields are now cracked, brown wastelands. According to a bombshell report by the International Olive Council, Spain's olive oil output will plummet to under 765,000 tons this year. That's nearly half of what they usually produce. This isn't just bad, it's catastrophic. And guess what? The nations we usually rely on to fill the gap are in no position to throw us a lifeline. Italy used to step in during olive oil shortages, but that's not happening this time. Why? Their olive groves, especially in Puglia, were devastated by a bacterial disease called Xylella. Entire olive tree populations have been wiped out. Greece? Forget about it. Rampant wildfires destroyed thousands of acres of ancient olive groves just last summer. Even Turkey, which often bails out the olive oil market, is struggling after massive earthquakes damaged essential production facilities. There's no cavalry coming. They're all in trouble. The market is already in chaos. Wholesale prices for olive oil jumped 71% in January alone. Supermarkets are panicking. Walmart is limiting customers to just 2 bottles. Costco's allowing 3, but honestly, that's still not enough to ride this out. If you've been to one of those fancy restaurants that spends half the menu bragging about their artisanal olive oil, you might have noticed something strange. Yep, they're quietly switching to blended oils or even removing their tasting menus entirely. Cooking shows that tell you to drizzle generously with extra virgin olive oil? That's about to sound like a bad joke by spring. 2, rice. Do you have a bag of rice sitting in your pantry right now? Don't take it for granted because it could be worth its weight in gold soon. Here's the deal. Something massive is happening in the global rice market, and you're probably not hearing about it from the mainstream media. Let me break it down for you. Last week, I talked to Mike, my local grocery store manager of 15 years, and I've never seen him look so nervous. He showed me his inventory sheet, and what I saw hit like a gut punch. Asia, which produces the bulk of the world's rice, is in serious trouble. They're experiencing the worst monsoon season in half a century. We're talking fields of rice, the size of entire U.S. states, completely underwater. NASA released satellite images to show the devastation. And this isn't just a little flooding, it's catastrophic. Then came the real bombshell. The United Nations Food Agency confirmed rice production is down by 60% in critical Asian countries. 60%! That's not a number you can simply shrug off. It gets even worse. India, the world's largest exporter of rice, the country that single-handedly keeps global supply chains steady, is about to lock its doors. Starting next month, they've announced massive restrictions on exporting rice because their own stockpiles are running on fumes. This is their lowest reserve since 1975. And keep in mind, they usually handle around 40% of the world's rice trade. Without India's contributions, the entire rice market is set to crumble like a stack of dominoes. Here at home in the US, we're not in any safer of a spot. American rice reserves are at a joke of a level, barely enough to meet 15% of normal demand. Prices are already spiraling. Remember when a basic bag of rice cost $5? It's now up to $8.25, and this is just the beginning of the price hike. According to experts at the Global Rice Market Forum, we could be staring down $15 per bag by March. And here's the real kicker. Certain types of rice are going to disappear faster than others. Basmati and jasmine rice lovers, brace yourselves. These varieties are almost entirely imported and they'll be the first to vanish. California sushi rice? Sure, it may stick around, but don't get too excited. it'll come with a price tag that screams luxury item. The World Food Program has already declared this the perfect storm for a massive global rice crisis. Here's the reality. If you rely on rice as a staple in your meals, now is the time to act. I'm not talking about panic buying, don't be that person, but grabbing an extra bag or two might not be a bad idea. Number 3, tomato products. If you've been noticing those temporarily out-of-stock signs in the sauce aisle, I'm here to tell you, they're lying. This isn't temporary. The tomato crisis is real, and it's about to wreck everything from your pizza night to your favorite pasta dishes. You think I'm joking? Listen up. California's Central Valley, which cranks out a whopping 95% of the country's processing tomatoes, is basically drying up. The region, a literal tomato empire, is dealing with the worst drought in over 200 years. Farmers are watching their fields turn into dust bowls because water prices have exploded, skyrocketing from $300 per acre-foot last year to an outrageous $200 now. Many of them haven't even bothered planting this season. No water, no tomatoes. It's that simple. Satellite imagery recently showed over 250,000 acres of tomato fields sitting empty. And don't think your fancy imported Italian tomatoes are going to save you. Italy is going through its own tomato apocalypse. The Po Valley, their tomato-growing hub, has been hammered by severe droughts and hailstorms, creating the worst tomato harvest since 1989. It's so bad that 40% of Italy's processing plants have shut down. And your beloved San Marzano tomatoes? Good luck finding them. They're quickly turning into a luxury item, practically the caviar of canned goods. But you want to know what's worse? Big brands like Heinz and Hunt's already see the writing on the wall, and they're pulling back. Heinz, the largest tomato processor on the planet, slashed production by 25% last month. Hunt's cut theirs by a staggering 30%. The empty spaces you see on store shelves today? That's just the beginning. This disaster is already squeezing local pizzerias and restaurants. A friend who owns a restaurant told me yesterday that his bulk tomato sauce prices shot up from $29 to $72 a case. He's scrambling to either cut portions or switch to cheaper alternatives. And trust me, you'll taste the difference. Even greenhouse-grown tomatoes, the supposed backup plan, are now a joke. Their pricing has jumped by 60% due to sky-high energy costs. And here's the kicker. Experts predict the worst is yet to come. Number 4, butter. All right, butter lovers, buckle up because this one's gonna sting. You've probably got a stick of butter sitting innocently in your fridge right now, right? Well, enjoy it while you can, because the butter game is falling apart, fast. Here's the deal. Last week, I visited a small family-run farm in Wisconsin, the Johnson family farm. They've been churning out dairy products since the 1960s. Mike Johnson, the guy who runs the place, stood there in an empty barn and said, "We had to sell half our herd." Why? Because feed costs more than we make from the milk, he said. And yeah, his voice cracked when he said it. This isn't some isolated sob story. This is happening everywhere. Since November, 38% of dairy farms have thrown in the towel. Do you get how big that number is? That's nearly 4 out of 10 farms gone. And it's not just about feed prices skyrocketing, it's about quality. Climate change is hammering hay crops. Stats show that protein content in hay has dropped by 23%. Translation? Cows now have to eat more just to give us the same amount of milk. More feed, less milk. It's an equation that's breaking farmers' backs. But wait, it gets even worse. Over in Europe, things are ugly. Take France, for example. You know, home of the croissant? They're staring at their worst butter shortage in 30 years. And the horror doesn't stop there. Some French bakeries, yes, real French ones, are experimenting with butter alternatives. What? A butterless croissant? That's not a croissant. That's a tragedy. And you've probably already started noticing something fishy at your local store. Those fancy European butter brands? Poof, vanishing. Why? Because big corporations are hoarding the quality cream, leaving scraps for the rest of us. According to USDA projections, butter quality is going to nosedive by 2025. Manufacturers are cutting corners left and right just to keep up with demand. Here's the move if you don't want to pay triple the price by March. Yes, that's happening. Stockpile now and freeze it. My grandmother used to double wrap butter in foil, stick it in a freezer bag, and freeze it for 6 months. I've already loaded up. Call me paranoid, but when prices hit the roof in a few months, I'll be the one laughing, croissant in hand. 5, vanilla. Vanilla lovers, brace yourselves because things are about to get ugly. You know Madagascar? That little island off Africa's coast. Well, it produces a whopping 80% of the world's real vanilla, and guess what? Cyclones just ripped through the place, wiping out 65% of those priceless vanilla orchids. Yeah, it's bad. Here's something crazier. Vanilla farming isn't just planting seeds and waiting. Nope. Each flower blooms for one day. Farmers have just 12 hours to hand-pollinate it using tiny bamboo sticks. No machines, no shortcuts, just back-breaking work passed down for generations. And now, their crops are underwater literally. It gets worse. Madagascar's largest vanilla processing plant just shut down because they can't even get enough pods. The fallout? Vanilla prices have skyrocketed from $200 to $600 per kilogram in under 2 months. That's triple the price. Ouch! Gourmet vanilla beans? Locked up like they're gold bars. Meanwhile, ice cream brands are panicking. This whole artisanal vanilla branding? They're ditching it for artificial flavoring on the down low. And coffee chains? Hoarding vanilla pods like it's a survival game. Don't even mention the farmers. 80,000 people are hanging by a thread, watching their livelihood vanish thanks to climate chaos. Pro tip for you? If you see real vanilla extract or whole beans on a shelf, grab them. Seriously, stock up. By spring, they'll be rarer than a lottery win. Oh, and all those natural vanilla labels? It's probably lab-made. Time to face the cold, hard truth. Your favorite desserts could taste as fake as they come. Sorry, not sorry. Number 6, maple syrup. All right, folks, brace yourselves. If you've got a stack of pancakes ready, you might want to put the fork down for this one. Maple syrup? Yeah, that sweet golden drizzle we all love might just disappear from your breakfast table, and sooner than you think. Here's the deal. Quebec, Canada, cranks out around 72% of the world's pure maple syrup. These people are pros, a mix of tradition and science. But guess what? Their syrup supply? It's a complete disaster right now. Here's why. Making maple syrup requires a specific freeze-thaw weather cycle. Cold nights and warm days? That's the jackpot for pushing sap up through the maple trees. But thanks to climate chaos, those ideal conditions got totally screwed this year. They were only able to tap their trees for 2 weeks. That's it. 2 weeks compared to the usual 2 months. Producers were scrambling, trying to make up for lost time. Imagine trying to fill a swimming pool with a leaky garden hose. And it gets worse. Quebec has a strategic maple syrup reserve, basically the Fort Knox of syrup. It's meant to cover emergencies like this. But their stockpile has dropped by a ridiculous 70%. That's not a problem. That's a full-blown syrup crisis. And if you think Vermont is any better off, think again. A quarter of their small producers, generations of family businesses, are already shutting down. Why? Because production costs have exploded, doubling almost overnight. What does this mean for you? That cute little $12 bottle of real maple syrup you pick up for brunch? By the time March hits, that same bottle might cost you $35, if you're lucky enough to find it. The cheaper brands? Forget about it. They'll be gone faster than free samples at Costco. So here's the cold, sticky truth. If you see real maple syrup at the store, buy it. Buy all of it. Stockpile it like it's gold, because soon it might be just that. Liquid gold that's totally out of reach. Mark my words, people. By spring, maple syrup isn't going to be breakfast. It'll be a bragging right. Number 7, coffee beans. All right, let's be blunt. If you're a coffee addict, brace yourself. We've got a problem. And it's not one you can fix with an extra shot of espresso. The days of your $5 latte might be over because coffee is in serious trouble. Brazil, which pumps out 40% of the world's coffee, just took a huge hit. Imagine this. Temperatures are so high there, coffee cherries are straight up cooking right on the branch. It's not just bad, it's apocalyptic. NASA's already sounding the alarm, saying 68% of coffee-growing regions are under extreme heat stress. The soil? An unbearable 131 degrees Fahrenheit in some areas. At that temperature, roots just die. These coffee plants aren't just struggling, they're giving up. Now, usually we'd look to Vietnam or Colombia for backup, right? Nope. Vietnam's been overrun by a super pest beetle, like the Terminator of coffee destroyers. Pesticides? Useless. Farmers there are watching 25% of their crops vanish. And Colombia? Forget it. They're drowning, literally. 400% more rainfall than normal has turned coffee cherries into moldy sludge. Here's the kick in the teeth. Coffee stockpiles are at their lowest in decades. The big chains? They're hoarding beans like gold bars, leaving smaller roasters hanging out to dry. Coffee prices aren't just climbing, they're skyrocketing. Futures just hit $4.85 a pound and could soar to $8.50 by March. You know what that means? Your coffee could end up costing triple. But don't panic just yet. Here's how to prepare. Buy whole beans, not pre-ground. Those will stay fresh longer if stored right. Get airtight containers and pay attention to the roast date, not the expiration date. Cold brew? A lifesaver. It uses fewer beans and it's easy to make at home. Mark my words. If you love your morning cup of coffee, act now. Because by March, that cup might not just be expensive, it might be gone altogether. Number 8. Cocoa and chocolate products. All right, chocolate lovers, brace yourselves because this one's going to hurt. You know that chocolate bar you grab for a quick pick-me-up? It might be gone, yes, gone, by February 2025. I'm not being dramatic here. Here's the deal. West Africa, specifically Ghana and Ivory Coast, grows about 70% of the world's cocoa. But right now, those cocoa farms are in absolute crisis mode. A nightmare disease called swollen shoot virus is ripping through their cocoa trees, wiping out entire farms. We're talking about decades, even generations, of work being destroyed in months. Imagine growing something your family depends on, only to watch almost half of it die off practically overnight. It's not just a few farms either. At an emergency meeting last week in Switzerland, the International Cocoa Organization dropped some horrifying stats: a 40% crop loss. That's the worst the industry has seen since records began in 1960. Oh, and if you think that's bad, the changing climate is piling on, making the surviving trees produce beans that are smaller, weaker, and frankly not up to standard. Now here's where things hit home. Mars, Hershey, and other chocolate giants? They've already announced they'll cut chocolate production by around 35% starting next month. Yeah, you heard that right. We're not just looking at higher prices. Some types of chocolate could flat out disappear from store shelves. And if you're a fan of dark chocolate, you'd better listen up. It's first on the chopping block. Those premium beans used in proper dark chocolate? They're the most vulnerable to this disease. But here's the twist. Craft chocolate makers are pivoting. Some are going full Frankenstein with synthetic alternatives or swapping cocoa for carob. Yikes! Nothing replaces the real deal, and you know it. Here's my advice if you give a damn about your chocolate stash. Stock up, especially on your favorite dark chocolate. By February, it might either be impossible to find or priced like it belongs under lock and key. Don't say I didn't warn you. Chocolate isn't just a snack anymore, it's shaping up to be a luxury item. Wild, isn't it? 9. Citrus fruits. Say goodbye to your morning OJ. Here's some cold, hard truth about the citrus in your fridge. Florida's citrus industry is crashing. And I don't mean a slight decline, I'm talking about straight to rock bottom. We're seeing the lowest production since 1933. Back then, your great-grandparents were probably squeezing orange juice by hand like it was a luxury. And guess what? We might be heading back there. Florida used to pump out over 200 million boxes of oranges every year. This season, just 15.85 million boxes. That's a 90% free fall. What's behind this? A tiny rice-sized pest called the Asian citrus psyllid. It carries a tree-killing disease called citrus greening. Once a tree's infected, it's game over. Bitter fruit, twisted shapes, and eventually it just stops growing altogether. Worst part? There's no cure. Farmers are literally watching their orchards die off, one tree at a time. And don't think California's swooping in to save the day. Last month, they confirmed the same disease in their citrus groves. Add to that extreme weather, 1 week freezing, the next burning, and it's like nature's teaming up to destroy your oranges. California's yield plummeted 32% in just 3 months. Now brace yourself, it's hitting your wallet. Premium orange juice at $7 a carton? Forget it. Bloomberg says it could skyrocket to $12 by March. Fresh oranges? You'll need a second job to afford them. Some stores like Walmart and Kroger are already limiting citrus purchases to 2 bags per shopper. And for you foodies, high-end restaurants are scrapping orange-centric dishes from their menus altogether. It's not just oranges either. Lemons, limes, grapefruits, they're all circling the drain. Supermarket chains are slashing citrus orders by nearly half. Even vitamin C supplements won't save you. They've jumped 68% in price just since December. Here's a harsh truth. If you spot good citrus, buy it. Freeze it. Juice it. Preserve it. Because in a few months, you'll wish you had. Scientists are racing to create resistant trees, and the University of Florida just got $25 million to fast-track a solution. But don't hold your breath. For now, the $9 billion citrus industry is collapsing before our eyes. 10. Eggs. Why breakfast will never be the same. All right, listen up. Eggs are in serious trouble, and it's going to hit your wallet hard. Think this is just another price hike? Think again. Experts are calling it the egg-pocalypse of 2025. Remember when you used to grab a dozen for $3? Forget about it. Those days are done. Here's what's really happening. The bird flu isn't just back. It's smarter, deadlier, and tearing through farms like wildfire. The USDA just announced that over 22 million hens have been wiped out. That's not a typo. Millions. Dead. I talked to Sarah, an egg farmer in Iowa, and she said her barns are practically empty. 40 years in this business, and I've never seen anything this bad, she told me. The scary part? This new flu strain can survive the usual cleaning methods, so even the best biosecurity measures are failing. Over 400 farms across the U.S. are infected, 47 states! Organic and cage-free eggs? Yeah, the expensive ones you thought were better? They're the most at risk because those hens are exposed to wild birds. Oh, and it gets worse. Feed prices have shot up by 55%.
Small farms are shutting down left and right, and the bigger operations are dumping millions into last-ditch safety upgrades.
It's looking grim. Analysts are saying egg prices could triple by March. Some places might not even have eggs on shelves at all. Think it's just about breakfast? Wrong! Eggs are in vaccines, cosmetics, baked goods, you name it. The ripple effect is huge.
Even egg substitutes won't save you. They're made from dried eggs, and big companies are hoarding those too.
Want to prepare? Freeze your eggs. Yes, really. Just beat them, pour them into ice cube trays, and freeze them. That'll get you 6 months of backup. Grab some now because by March they might be gone. And no, this isn't news hype. Check your store. Those empty shelves? Just the start. Buckle up, the eggpocalypse is here. Number 11, honey. All right, this one's serious.
We need to talk about honey, and no, I'm not exaggerating.
It's not just your usual, oh, the shelves are looking a little empty situation. This is way worse. Here's the deal. According to the Global Bee Institute's recent report, we've lost 40% of bee colonies just this winter. 40%. And it's not just because of cold weather or other normal problems. Wildfires have burned down millions of acres of wildflower fields. No flowers mean no nectar.
No nectar means no honey.
It's that simple. I spoke with Jim, a local beekeeper, and he was blunt. Beekeepers are barely hanging on. They're forking over their savings just to keep their bees alive.
Relocating hives?
Costs have tripled. Weather patterns are so unpredictable that bees don't know when to pollinate. Oh, and bee diseases? They're getting worse too. And you know who's paying for all this? You. That plastic bear bottle of honey that used to cost $8.99? It's now $15.99 if you can even find it. Organic honey? It's practically a luxury item at this point. I saw raw honey locked up in a store cabinet like it was a Rolex. $32.99 for 16 ounces. Insane.
But here's what's worse. Half of the cheap honey on shelves isn't even real.
It's corn syrup with fake honey flavoring. The FDA literally found that nearly half of the honey in budget stores contains zero actual honey. What a scam. And get this, climate data shows flower blooming patterns are completely out of sync with bee behavior.
Scientists are saying 2025 could be the breaking point for small-scale beekeepers.
This isn't going to magically fix itself. Here's the bottom line. If you see real, raw, unfiltered honey anywhere, grab it! Check the label. Real honey should only have one ingredient, honey. Stock up now because by March it'll either be gone or priced like gold. Don't say I didn't warn you.
12 canned tuna.
All right, folks, check your pantry because canned tuna is about to be a luxury item. Remember those dirt-cheap tuna cans you could grab for under $1? Yeah, forget about it. They're vanishing, and here's why. The Pacific Tuna Commission just dropped a hammer, slashing fishing quotas by 50%. Not a little adjustment. Half. The biggest cut since regulations started in the 90s. And no, it's not just about saving fish.
The real mess is what's happening behind the scenes.
Picture this. Giant fishing ships sitting idle in ports. Not because they want to, but because they have no choice. Why? Fuel costs have exploded. A single trip that used to cost $40,000 now runs a whopping $95,000. You heard that right. Almost 6 figures just to catch fish. It's killing the industry. And now the brands we all know, Starkist, Bumblebee, Chicken of the Sea, are pulling back hard. Factories are slowing production, and those sweet deals we all loved, like 4 cans for $5, gone. Forever. Instead, get ready to see price tags go nuts, up by 73% by February. If you think budget brand tuna will save you, think again. Those are disappearing first. You want tuna?
Stick to Chunk Light while you still can.
It's the last affordable variety left standing. But even that's on the clock because ocean temperatures are wreaking havoc. Tuna are moving into new migration zones, and traditional fishing grounds? Empty. It's chaos.
This isn't just a supply chain issue.
Canned tuna is heading for extinction in your grocery aisle, and fast. Stock up now, or you'll be paying premium prices for what used to be a lunch staple. The clock's